Earlier in the week, Tim Harper posted a question about, from the player's perspective, how much preparation should the Game Master be doing? And it generated a lot of good answers, and I wasn't really sure that I was going to reply because I didn't have too much to say about it, but then, things being what they are, it occurred to me I did maybe have something to contribute. Like others, I don't feel I can answer this question wholly from the player's side. Because there are aspects of preparation which affect the Game Master, and then that effect on the Game Master spills over into the player's perception. So I felt like it was necessary to talk about both sides. But when I'm playing in someone's game, at this point, because I have invested so much time in becoming familiar with new game systems and launching, campaigns or short series with new game systems, I feel that what often gets called system mastery is less important. If I know that this is the first time that a game master has been running the system, I just want them to be more familiar than me. I want them to have a general sense of, where in the rulebook the answer to whatever has happened to stop play can be found so we can get on with it, or is comfortable enough with themselves as a game master to make a ruling and go on. Now, I'm definitely in the rulings over rules camp. However, not all games are that way. Like, for example, if I'm introducing a group to a game that I know well, and the purpose of that introduction is to show them how the game system works, then we're going to play that game in what I call the vanilla version. You're going to get the unadulterated rules. It's going to be run according to the designer's intent. And if there's an attached setting or genre to those rules, which in my case there usually is, then that will be presented in its basic version, not one of the alternates. So, for example, if I were introducing someone to Vampire the Masquerade, it would be a Camarilla game. There would be the 7 basic clans. It would take place in a large city. There'd be no moral ambiguity about the Sabbat or Paths of Humanity, etc., etc. You would get the basic, out-of-the-box experience of Vampire the Masquerade, like it was when we first got the one core rulebook. Because I'm there to introduce them to that game. If everybody's familiar with the system and I'm running the game for them and they want to get to know, me as a game master, or they want to get to know each other as players in an environment which has a little bit of surprise to it according to the system, as if it were new, even though it's something that we're all used to, well, then I'm going to do it very differently. And this all comes back down to preparation, in that if it's a new system with which I am not comfortable, are we there to, experience my version of it, or are we there to explore it? And once that question has been cleared up, then we can go forward. So, for example, in my Edge of the Empire game, I made it pretty clear to the group, and they were fine with this, that I wanted to play the game as written for a while. Maybe a long while. I like to make sure that I've put the game through its paces, and that I have seen it in as many different situations as I possibly can before I weigh in on whether I enjoy how it works or not. Running one session and having a good time does not an understanding of a system or setting make. So we're running that as written. And when we come to a part where I really want to check something, then I will create, a natural break where I can step back a bit and access the rules. And I have designated certain people within the group to become expert on specific rules. Like our combat monsters, they have the obligation to be completely versed in all the intricacies of combat. And our slicer or hacker character has responsibility for that. That people playing droids have responsibility for that, and so on and so on. So that at any given time, someone's able to say, in the book it says. Right? Does this mean there's more out of character communication? Well, yes, it does. And this will decrease as we stop asking the questions. It will naturally weed itself out. So that doesn't bother me so much. So do I feel like it's the Game Master's duty to have mastered the game before running it? I really don't. And I did. I used to. A long time ago, I wouldn't run a game until I had it cold. And I would run practice sessions, of different scenes, combat, negotiation, etc., multiple times before I would run it. And the players could just come in and play. But most of my players in those days were also game masters, and I didn't ever have to worry about them running a game. Now, circumstances are quite different, and most of the people I play with do not run games, and so I've learned to learn the system with them in order to build up more around-the-table confidence with the system so that it's easier for them to imagine running the game because they've actually gone through the process of, explicitly learning it. So, that system. Setting. Yes, you already know if you watch this channel, I don't care if there's a planned story. In fact, I prefer that there not be. The amount of preparation I require is such that the Game Master is confident about the setting. The Game Master is confident about the reactions of characters. The Game Master doesn't have to pause and scratch their head and wonder how a given character would react to a situation. They know. If they don't know those things, I consider them to be unready to run the session. Now, how much time this takes depends on the person. Someone who's very comfortable with improvisation needs much less time. They need to build the character and have access to their notes in whatever form those might be. It might be a simple character sheet or 2 lines of description or a bunch of adjectives in a list or whatever. They need to know those characters and then improv based on that, just like the players are doing. And I'm totally happy. So, how much time is needed? The right amount is a terrible answer to say, but that's what it boils down to. Copious notes, binders filled with details, for me, now, is going much too far and takes away from time that is better spent elsewhere, both in thinking about the nature of the game that I'm running and in just living my normal life. While I can make great use of that level of preparation, very few campaigns go long enough to use it all, and it becomes, at a certain point, the Game Master bringing things out of the binder to introduce to the party or to influence the story, and that's simply not the way I play. So, for the Edge of the Empire game that I'm running, the amount of preparation that I'm doing is reading through sections of the rulebook on a weekly basis so that it sticks in my mind. It's talking with the players about their characters and answering their questions, both mechanical and genre-related, for the spirit of the game. And I'm creating lots of interesting characters in places that I imagine that they'll want to visit or have been told that they want to visit, so that when they visit them, I'm ready for there to be a realistically full world there for them, rather than an empty world or one in which I just have to improv and be, scratching for an appropriately Star Wars-like name and that. I'm not thinking about story elements. I'm not thinking, well, after they do this, I'm going to have them be kidnapped by the Empire, and then they'll get an escape, and then there'll be a chase, and then we'll move on. I'm not running the game that way. They have been asked if they want to take a job. They took the job. They're now working through the job, and what happens, happens. So, all told, we play for 3 to 4 hours per week, and if I total up all the moments that I'm thinking on the game, I imagine that would be around 2 hours for a 4-hour game. And this will rapidly decrease the longer that the game goes on. We'll build up a cast of characters, and they will prefer to interact with those characters rather than meet the same, type of character in the same type of occupation, just in a different location. Player psychology doesn't tend to work that way, and the genre of Star Wars brings us lots of callbacks to earlier locations. So prep time will eventually drop to the new location attached to whatever job or activity that they're getting up to. Some of these which will have to be created on the fly. So how much prep time? From the player's point of view, enough that confidence is assured. There's no fumbling behind the screen for what's supposed to happen next, what an appropriate response is, or how a character is portrayed. There can be some fumbling with checking out new rules if the group has decided that they want to play the rules as written. From the Game Master side, well, these answers are the same. I need to do enough prep to feel confident that I can, facilitate a fun and quick-moving time on game day. I hope this has had some merit.